In Edinburgh, they mock the British Prime Minister, but he plans to travel to the Highlands soon to prevent the kingdom from falling apart. After Brexit, the tone is set for the next divorce drama. The travel warning issued by the Scottish National Party, the SNP, which is in power in Scotland, on Monday evening came because of the given occasion. The law in Scotland states that any work that needs to be done from home must be done there, said a spokesman. Travel, unless absolutely necessary, should be avoided. The SNP did not name a specific addressee for its warning, but in this case, everyone in the UK knew who was meant: Boris Johnson. Hours earlier, the British media had reported that the head of government was planning a trip to the far north shortly, and by shortly it's meant on Thursday. So it already happened, but I want to talk about the before now. The apparently hastily arranged trip, according to the London Sun, was like a rescue mission. Johnson planned to ensnare the local Scots with a passionate appeal to make them renounce petty separatism. Whether the Prime Minister, who has also called himself Minister for the Union since he took office in July 2019, got through with this is rather questionable. In early May, if the pandemic allows, the Scots will elect a new regional parliament, and that's why Boris Johnson now travelled there. I'll make another video about what happened on Thursday in Scotland. For months now, pollsters for the SNP, which has been in power since 2011, have been predicting a landslide victory. And the Scottish First Minister Nicola Sturgeon is determined to let the citizens vote again on independence afterwards. In the first independence referendum in 2014, 55% of the voters were in favour of the union with England, Wales and Northern Ireland. But a lot has happened since then. And all surveys meanwhile suggest that a clear majority would vote for the divorce on the second attempt. The signs couldn't be better for the SNP, which despite its misleading name represents a cosmopolitan left liberal agenda. Since the beginning of the corona crisis, Sturgeon has cleverly used the fact that the four parts of the kingdom are responsible for their own health policies. While Johnson unsettled the English with a zigzag course and always lagged behind the development, Sturgeon presented herself as a straightforward and empathetic country mother. It is true that the pandemic, measured in terms of population, was as devastating in Scotland as it was in the neighbours in the south. Officially, more than 100,000 people in the United Kingdom have now died of or with COVID-19. According to figures from the National Statistics Agency, at least 20,000 more deaths than expected. But unlike Johnson, Sturgeon's reputation has not been hurt by that. She is now even more popular than Boris Johnson in large parts of England. In addition, the Brexit, which was finally implemented at the turn of the year, angered many Scots. In the 2016 EU referendum, they voted with a clear majority to remain in the Union, in the European Union this time. Since then, they have felt ignored by the Conservatives in power in London. The fact that Northern Ireland is actually allowed to remain in the EU internal market due to a special agreement with Brussels, while Scotland has to pay for the consequences of the heartbreak, upsets many. After an IndyRef 2, they hope to re-enter the EU as an independent state soon. The Scottish, and we in Germany would call them nationalists because of the name of the party, but I already explained what they are so sure of their cause that they are now even heading into full confrontation with Johnson's government. At the weekend, the SNP decided on an 11-point roadmap for independence. Accordingly, the government in Edinburgh wants to demand the constitutionally required approval for a further referendum, a so-called Section 30 order, from London immediately after an election victory in May. Should this not happen, the legal framework for a new referendum will be created. It was no coincidence that the declaration of war was made on the eve of the birthday of Robert Burns, one of Scotland's national poets. On the BBC, Sturgeon mocked the UK Prime Minister in Burns' words as a crouching, fearful creature. Johnson fears the will of the Scots. He is afraid of democracy, she says. At the same time, however, Sturgeon asserted that she did not want an unconstitutional vote based on the model of Catalonia, but a legal referendum. Constitutional lawyers have already outlined how this could work without permission from London. Accordingly, the government in Edinburgh could initially only ask the Scots whether they should enter into negotiations with London on possible independence. A trick, but one whose dynamic could lead to London giving in at the end and having to allow Indy Ref 2. So far, Johnson has rigorously ruled that out. Just recently he said in an interview that there were about 40 years between the two British EU referendums in 1975 and 2016. This is the right time for such votes, which experience has shown in this country and was not exactly enjoyable. But even in Johnson's cabinet, not everyone believes that a strict no to Scotland can be sustained in the long term. Rather, Johnson now has to do what he promised when he took office, now that he has managed Brexit, to hold together the drifting parts of the kingdom. His planned trip to Scotland was therefore supposed to be not to be the only one. A poll for the London Times recently revealed how enormous Johnson's task is. In all 4 parts of the country, fewer and fewer people call themselves British. In addition to the Scots, the Northern Irish are particularly drawn away from England. There too, a majority of the people want a vote on a possible reunification with the Republic of Ireland in the next 5 years. Even in Wales, support for independence is growing. And the following is particularly bitter for Johnson. With a total of 45%, almost half of the British would not be set, that's 28%, or would even welcome it, that's 17%, if the Scots went their own way. However, Johnson will not watch the collapse of the kingdom without a fight, we all know that. He has set up a task force led by one of the most important Brexit negotiators to explore ways to prevent Scotland from seceding. With a large-scale campaign, London wants to convince the Scots of the advantages of the kingdom freed from EU shackles. If that doesn't work, and if a referendum is inevitable, Downing Street wants to roll further obstacles in the way of Edinburgh. For example, London could try to force an independence vote to be binding only after 60% of the votes have been cast. Or the third option on the ballot paper, next to leaving or staying, could be a much greater autonomy for Scotland. How exactly this would work is currently being explored by one of Johnson's predecessors. Labourman Gordon Brown, a Scot, recently reported back from political oblivion. He shares with Johnson the fear of a balkanization of his home country. To prevent this, the government must quickly and decisively renew the foundations of the state, Brown recently wrote in the Daily Telegraph. We are faced with a choice between a reformed state or a failed state, he wrote. I made a video about that article from Brown a few days ago. And as I said, that was just about the press release from the government that he was going there when I wrote that script. It really happened very shortly after that. He went to Scotland on Thursday. I will make another video on that, what happened there, but that's all for now. On Sunday, I'm going to have my first live stream, and you can ask questions for this on my community tab. And if you want to stay informed in general, please subscribe to my channel and to my other channels. I'll see you in my next video. Auf Wiedersehen.